We got married in September of 2000, and we had 3 children. Life was good, and it just seemed normal, what I thought was normal. And there really wasn't much trauma until there was.
The first time he was a slap, and you could see every fingerprint from his hand on my face, and it lasted. For some days, and I hid it.
It really did. It felt like it would be a mercy if we went to sleep and woke up with Jesus. Enough is enough is enough. And I worked around a group of people who would have moved mountains for me if I would have just asked for help. Just because I worked in the industry didn't make it any easier.
I grew up in a Christian family. Life was simple, and it was good. It felt safe and loving. And when I was a teenager, I met my future husband, and we worked together at a small local grocery store in Brentwood, Tennessee. So we went from just a happy couple of 3 kids to really brokenness, and there was some hopelessness there. I had no tools. I had no community then. I wore a mask, and I wanted everybody to see the good marriage, the perfect kids, that I had it all together, all the things. So I didn't know I was isolated, and that made it worse.
I was born to a teenage mom. My mom, she had 3 kids before she was 16. And we were raised in a foster care home. At 18, I conceived my first child. So that's where life changed for me. Gave me like a sense of purpose, because now I had this baby, that I had to take care of and to, change for. I was searching for love and just relationships, longing for that connection with the male, because I had never had it. You know how they say, it gets worse after the first time, and that's pretty much what it was. He was very controlling, and if I didn't do or say what it was he wanted me to, he would be physical. This time was the worst of the worst. He snapped, and it was I was laying on the floor and I was looking up into his eyes. He was somebody else. The Lord met me right there, and he says, no, call the police, just get him out of the house. But the addiction was still there. I still was craving love and craving relationship, intimacy, all the things, that didn't leave. So I did just jump back into something else really quickly because of that.
So their dad and I have been split since 2016, and he struggles himself with his own addictions and his own mental health. He had my children on a 4-wheeler, and he was under the influence, and he flipped that 4-wheeler. My daughter was 4. She was in the front of the 4-wheeler. It flipped on top of her body. Her neck should have snapped. She will tell you that an angel caught her that night. My kids physically had pretty minor injuries, but the mental trauma and damage was extensive. Dealing with all of their trauma became my trauma, kind of. And I carried that for them, and those court dates and the law and dealing with the district attorney's office, just all of the things became so much. It was so heavy. I was angry with the Lord. I wanted to be grateful. I wanted to be grateful that they were alive.
So Kevin and I, we worked hard, and Jesus offers us freedom, and it's not easy. So we had to partner with him. We had to pick up those tools. We had to use them. And it became where we were just deeply connected, and we would just sit on the porch and hold hands and talk about our future. And we also just knew that God was going to use us. And then in the fall of 2021, our family got COVID, and it hit Kevin the hardest, and he was isolated. They wouldn't let me in to see him. They called me on a Tuesday evening and said that I needed to come see him because he wasn't going to make it through the night. I got there, and I never believed that because I had seen God do such miracles in our marriage, in our mindsets, in us individually, that I never did believe that he wouldn't make it. I had made assumptions that God was going to use us to minister to the other couples. And it seemed like one minute there was hope and the next minute there wasn't. And so Jesus called him home. And it was a moment of, for me, losing what felt like everything.
I saw red flags, and I just jumped headfirst, still into a mess, searching still for love and relationship and all the things that come along with it. I was going into a divorce, and my 2 children that I had with my first husband, we moved, and they didn't want to move to a different state, so they wanted to move back with their dad, and there was a whole custody battle and all that. And I think what really, really blew up my life was when I got the court papers that said that their dad got custody. And so it just threw me, because the entire time I was praying, Lord, let your will be done, not knowing that sometimes his will isn't what I expect or what I thought it should be. So that is where I really, really felt like I hit rock bottom. It was when my kids left, because my pursuit for love got me to that place. I didn't understand what God was doing. Up until that point, I thought, okay, if you pray a thing, then that's what's going to happen. And when it didn't, it did shake my faith a lot. And I was like, it was crazy, because I was just afraid to say, God, I'm mad at you, right now. But I really was, and I was hiding it. And he knows your heart. He knew, what was really going on in the inside of me, and he had to get all that out.
I ended up giving up my house. The kids and I had our home, and we moved in with my parents. And I thought that was going to help me. But there is something called enabling you to death. I was in a relapse. I was struggling with mental health. I was not consistent with my medication. I was one day take it, 10 days not. We'll see how it goes. And dang, I was playing with my life. I had pulled away from everybody, wouldn't talk to anybody, just went to work and came home, dealt with the kids' trauma, argued with attorneys. I had pill bottles lined up, ready to make a decision that I wouldn't be able to take back. I had an amazing friend who was relentlessly checking on me. And I sat there just listening to the phone ring until literally I could not stand the sound of it anymore. I had to answer it just so it would stop ringing. And she told me that she loved me, that the Lord loved me, and that my children loved me. She let me cry and talk as much as I needed to. And I listened to her. And after I got off the phone with her and packed those things up and took them to my parents downstairs, I said, I need help. I finally realized that maybe I couldn't do it, Or maybe it was just that I needed some help to do it.
I would tell myself that the only true source of love is God. And I realized that after that marriage, is that it wasn't until I started to seek Him wholeheartedly is when I healed, that place was healed in my heart to where I didn't feel like I had to have a person in that place.
I allowed myself to really wrestle with Him. I allowed myself to ask why. And there are some days still, even 2 years later, that I might ask why, or I might say, I still don't understand this, Lord, and yet I trust you. He has shown up over and over, and He has dropped us these nuggets that we're able to pick up that gives us strength to go a little further in our journey.
It felt like I was signing up for the hardest life possible.
I'm so thankful that God didn't leave me in the middle. I'm so glad that He didn't leave me in the middle of my mess.
It's in those unexpected places that God shows up. And a friend of mine, Amy, said, if you're not there, just pray for the willingness, and God will bring those people in your life.
I have found everybody has a story, and when we share, I have found it allows other people to open up and feel like they can share their story.
I think oftentimes when you are in deep despair, you want to retreat and get
Yes,
alone.
yes.
But I think it's a God thing when you actually want to be in community and have people love on you and stuff, because He doesn't want you to be alone in it.
Right. When Kevin passed, I was in such shock, and I trusted God, and I was disappointed. And it was about a year before I felt like I could really pray again. A prayer other than, Jesus, help. Like for a year, that is all I could say to Him, Jesus, help. And I knew that was enough, but I knew I needed community to lift me up in prayer also, because I just couldn't do it.
Yes. It's still something that is hard as a single mom to make it a priority. But every day is better when I talk to Him.
Yeah.
Every day is better.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But when I couldn't, and they did for me, that was priceless.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so in those moments, having people who can, be your Aaron and hold your arms
Yes,
up.
that's
and,
right.
I mean, it literally can make a huge difference. And, I got to a place where I could pray again. And
What it took for me to build the community that I now have is me making a choice to be vulnerable. I was really, really guarded. I felt like I had to keep up this, this facade
Yeah.
and this appearance that everything was great and I'm just so wonderful, But as I kept showing up, and not going in the corners, I started to step out a little bit more and get closer and start talking to people and stuff like that. So that's kind of what built my community. It's just deciding to be vulnerable and to get outside of my box.
asking for help was always hard for me. Needing someone else's help, not admitting that I couldn't do it by myself.
And there's something about brokenness that brings you to a place where you have nothing else. The mask is gone. I don't think I was ready to be in community until I was in the pit of brokenness and despair, that my heart was open to it.
When I was in treatment and going through all the therapies, there's something in one of the cognitive behavioral or something like that, and they call it opposite action. And you literally have to do the thing that you don't want to do.
Yep.
And they say that the motivation to do something the next time comes after you've already done it the first time when you didn't want to.
I have said one of my favorite stories in the Bible is Jesus asking the lame man at the pool, "Do you want to be well?" And I feel like from day one, from hurt to grief, is him asking, "Do you want to be well?" And I want to be well. I want to be well, and he offers that. And it's not overnight. It is a process. It is community. It's 431 Ministries. It's Celebrate Recovery. It's Never Alone Widows. It's prayer and grief share and church and worship and partnering with him and using the tools that we have gained.
I think that's where the real transformation comes, is when it turns from being a victim and blaming to actually wanting to be healed and whole. And that's where it was for me. The transformation started when I wanted it, you know, and then I got to a place of desperation before I wanted it, but that's where God was really able to now see my heart wide open so that he could work with me.
I do a daily gratitude list, kind of to like track some of my moods. And since I've been doing that, I can see a difference. Like my mind has shifted away from the poor pitiful me.
Because we could sit in a pit.
To me. You know, I don't deserve this. My kids don't deserve this. And where the accountability can come into that is like when I start to slip back into that thinking. I've got somebody who I know loves me. And it may sting a little bit when they say it, but they only say it because they love me, and I need to hear it, and I trust them.
We've got to hear truth and just encouragement that will ask hard questions. That's important. Let someone ask you the hard questions. Sometimes it's going to hurt, it's going to sting, but it's necessary. There is hope and healing available if you want it. I feel like I'm constantly holding two things: fear and courage, grief and joy, whatever it is, always two opposites. Just having someone that I can trust with anything, any information, and the things that I'm able to confess. And also I can have things spiral in my mind that will not, it's like I can't get relief from that. But when I share that with someone, it's amazing the power that it loses.
Where I found the balance is by remaining consistent. I would, before, go into a pit of despair and I would stay there for a while. But now I pick up my tools, which is scripture and praise and worship, or something to kind of pull me out of it. So I think that's where the balance is. You still get those moments, but now having tools to pull you back up and to give you, you know, a balance.
I think of the airline stewardess that says when the pressure drops and the oxygen masks come down, you have to put your mask on first. I was like literally about to suffocate because I wouldn't put my mask on first. I could not take care of them until I took care of me first. Of course, when I did, as I got better, they got better. And I maintained better by being consistent, staying consistent with the things that work. Today was hard, and yesterday probably was hard too, and tomorrow might be really hard, but that it wouldn't be this way forever. And hearing that and knowing that like I could have my moment, I could feel my feelings, I just didn't need to unpack and live in this moment forever, and I didn't need to let a permanent decision fix a temporary problem. Like it will get better and it will change.
So it's holding grief and joy, not denying the pain, and also not wanting to just sit in that pit, because we have a choice. And it goes back to Jesus asking, do you want to be well? So it is wanting to continue to live life, knowing there's more to live, wanting my children to experience that, to have joy, knowing God wants that for me, knowing Kevin would want that for me and my children, and not denying the loss and the pain. Just because we have so much hope, which we do in Jesus, we still hurt and have that pain. My hope is not denying the grief. And when I hold the grief, it's not denying the hope.
When you get around people and actually have time to spend and feel safe to like share what's going on and care about what other people are going through too, that like helps me sometimes get outside of myself and my struggles, when like I can be encouragement to someone else too. Like they needed that, but boy did I need that at that moment. I needed to remember, hey, he's still good. You know, it's hard, but he's still good. And just saying it to somebody else will remind you.
And you need someone to be gentle yet firm, to share truth, God's word with you, and just to help put you back on that solid foundation.
I needed somebody who knew more than me to speak wisdom to me when the days were just too hard. A friend that would just come and take the kids to the park
Yes.
for half an hour, to just be somebody that would make me laugh when all I wanted to do was cry.
Yeah.
It gave me hope because there was now somebody there that I could talk to, and that's what community was for me, was just having somebody there and not feeling alone anymore.
There is something healing about sharing your story. I still need to talk about my grief. I still need to talk about Kevin. What I love is that all three of us have very different stories, but the hope that we have all found, hope in Jesus and community, and how it doesn't matter what your story is, what your pain is, or your brokenness, just even the camaraderie that we have sitting here talking, that's community. And all it takes is a willing heart